I always say time is a flat circle. Time repeats itself. I always say that and then somehow get surprised when it actually happens. We, as a community, as a society even, have we learned nothing from Rainforest 7 years ago? Have we just given up the mindset of making the furry fandom look like average, normal people with an odd hobby and not sex, kink-obsessed freaks? Oh, right. I forgot about that. I have never exactly been too proud to call myself a furry in public, mostly because of that negative stigma that follows along with the admission. For those who can admit to it without cringing, I salute you fully. But you have to admit, those who make being a kinky, sex-hungry furry their personality makes it much harder to associate with the group, and that only escalates when furry conventions work their way into the conversation. The belief that the majority of furries only meet at furry conventions to engage in sex-related events has become somewhat of the norm. And can you blame them? It seems like whenever you hear about a convention, there's always an instance where someone nutted on a pizza or in a bong, or videotapes strangers having sex in a hotel room and uploading it to the internet, or even smearing doo-doo feces all over the walls of a room. But we'll get to that. I say this to cement the reality that furry conventions continue to grow more and more uninviting to those who even entertain the idea of attending. Not because people have sex in the privacy of their hotel rooms, but because that which should be done in private is being pulled out into the public. For the sake of relevancy, I'm going to be talking about baby furs as an example because there have been a sizable number of incidents involving the group lately that have grabbed my attention. Now, as the name would imply, a baby fur is a furry who roleplays as a child or a baby. Pretty self-explanatory. It can be done to cope through the process of age regression, or for the reasons I'm going to have to drink away to forget the memory of. While it's nowhere near my cup of tea, I'm not going to judge someone for what they do in their private time. But when it hits the public eye, it kind of becomes fair game to voice my thoughts on it, wouldn't you say? This is why I'll be getting into a few baby fur or ABGL incidents that support the idea that wearing your kinks on your proverbial sleeve, or sometimes literal, isn't always the best move when it comes to furcons, mostly because of incidents like this one. At Texas Furry Fiesta 2022, a baby fur with a habit of pushing boundaries went over to the dealer's tent, a family-friendly public space, and flaunted around in their ABGL attire. Now, this isn't an instance of kink shaming or anything of the sort. This was someone who knew they would be removed from the area for doing this, but decided to do so for the clout. There was hardly any consequence for this little number either. Him getting kicked out was admittedly an exaggeration on his part. He was just asked not to wear the attire on the con floor until 9 PM, which was when the after dark portion of the event occurred. Which I mean, fair, right? There was also the now deleted video he posted on Twitter that received more praise than it did backlash. And even then, the user only deleted the video because it showed him breaking the convention's After Dark rules. Something that strikes me as a bit weird, even when he still has videos up where he prances around his kink at public spaces, like the hallways of BLFC 2021. He doesn't have any shame when it comes to wearing his fetishes out in the public for literally anyone to see. Which, yeah, it is your body, do whatever you want with it. But when it comes to wearing obvious fetish-attributed garments in a public space, it shouldn't even have to be explained how doing so is just asking for shit to hit the fan. As they've said, there is a time and place for it. Most people would just refer to it as in private. This baby fur would even inspire a copycat to do just as he did, prance around a con space in a diaper. Unsurprisingly, this copycat would turn out to be none other than a user by the name of Catalyst. A baby fur known for constantly showing off her fetish whenever possible, along with wearing blatant fetish gear in public. This includes instances where she has defecated her diaper at her mother's house, urinated her diaper in public, and even went as far as to have someone change her diaper at a crowded public park. I'm not going to get into the more heinous stuff like them doxing their mother because she found her daughter's fetish disturbing, because that's beside the point I want to make here, although it does draw parallels with something that happened not too long ago. Wolfbird is a fursuit maker from Quebec who has been found on record as vocally against baby furs. In March of 2022, it was found out that Wolfbird was going to be a guest of honor at Furnal Equinox 2023, and all it took was a single glimpse of their bio for concerned diaper donners to vocalize their disdain. This wave of backlash would result in the con announcing that they and Wolfbird mutually agreed to not proceed with the planned guest of honor arrangement. We wish to sincerely apologize to Wolfbird and to our community for putting all involved in intensely difficult situations as a result of our failure to perform due diligence. This statement is most likely in regards to not only Wolfbird's dislike of baby furs being acknowledged, but the fact Fernal Equinox had also hosted a baby fur event of their own this year, something that explains both the large wave of disgruntled attendees, as well as the distinct lack of support for Wolfbird's stance. But in that case, Wolfbird did kind of dodge a bullet then. The reason I'm mentioning this is that I find it thematically fitting, as well as a complete and utter overreaction. Wolfbird was essentially rallied against for being against baby furs, something that the group saw as targeted hate against their ranks. Gross and hateful discrimination, the whole 9 yards. I mean, think about it for a second. The entire wave of backlash happened because a married woman who presumably has a kid sees baby furs in the similar field as pedophiles. I mean, could you blame a mom for thinking that? Hell, I don't even have a kid and even I share a similar sentiment. I know being a baby fur doesn't inherently make you a pedophile. My followers have detailed for me what divides the two, and I can agree to an extent. Again, a baby fur is just a furry role-playing as a baby, which is where I personally raised an issue and determined that I don't want anything to do with it myself. But then you see a baby fur role-playing sexually and it's just like, how? That doesn't cross a line? Like, surely you can understand how that looks a tad pedophilic, right? Sexual baby furs aren't fantasizing about diddling a child, but they're fantasizing about being the child who gets diddled. It's like, huh? I'm getting somewhat off topic here, but I went in this direction to show just how much kink-surrounded practices have affected the convention scene in this fandom. We've gotten to the point where being against a fetish apparently gets you dogpiled. I applaud my followers for being civil when I asked that baby fur related question the other day, but something about a follower feeling the need to DM me their response out of fear of getting dogpiled on didn't really sit right with me, let alone getting into a one-sided discussion with someone treating my dislike of a fetish as if I was attacking a marginalized group. But what can you do about that? It only solidifies my point at the end of the day, that fetishes place detrimental effects on conventions when their time and place becomes a bit blurry. This was only amplified further at the start of April 2022. On April 4th, the staff of Motor City Furcon will post an open letter addressing the attendees of their 2022 convention. Most of the fandom has spread the news around at this point, but for those who haven't heard of what happened,
there was doo-doo feces thrown all over the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and it stunk so bad.
I think the worst part is, this isn't even much of an exaggeration. The open letter started by thanking the majority of attendees for attending the convention and donating to their charity. The event had taken them 5 months to prepare and appeared to go rather well, except for a few severe issues they wanted to bring attention to. There were quite a few things that occurred that had the potential to heavily impact the relationship between the con staff and the hotel, but the hotel staff were willing to work things out with them, even as they described some of the conditions members left their rooms in as biohazards. We won't go too in-depth to the section about members sleeping in their hotel lobby or in their cars, but just be a decent human being and sleep in the proper hotel rooms. Come on. The first concerns brought up in this post are about vomiting. MCFC is well known for creating a party atmosphere and doesn't mind its attendees getting a little drunk during the party. However, they report that they had excessive cases of vomit that were left unreported, only to be found by hotel staff in public bathrooms and presumably several hotel rooms. They ask that going forward, their members watch their alcohol consumption and remember to clean up after themselves. They also add that attendees may be subject to additional cleaning fees for their hotel rooms after this incident. Moving on from vomit, the second portion here deals with the other end. According to the hotel staff, people were just smearing literal shit around their rooms. We received reports of multiple instances of feces on public restroom walls and public room bathrooms in a manner that is inconsistent with illness or accidents. Some guest rooms had feces left on beds or in sheets. I don't think it needs to be said how shitty you'd have to be to go about doing this, because furries dealing with fecal matter has only gone so well before, hasn't it?
The dastardly do devourer!
The con staff would verbally condemn these actions and say that they've asked hotel staff to keep track of which rooms were left in these conditions, presumably to charge those responsible for the damages. And on top of this barbaric display, this is a subject that is quite volatile in the furry community as of late. And we want to begin by acknowledging that the ABDL community as a whole is filled with good people who know how to act properly, and this section is to address the bad actors. Bad actors in this case, referring to those responsible for the rainforest resurgence. There were reports of several instances of adult diapers left in public bathrooms, in stalls, on countertops, and trash cans filled with them. They say they understand that diapers are a part of ABDL practices, but they ask that attendees do not leave these items in public places, and to deal with them in their own hotel rooms. They also ask that they double bag and dispose of these diapers in a way that hotel staff have to interact with them as little as possible. This is what I mean when I refer to baby furs and other such kinks impacting the furcon scene. We're not having videos and discussions because, ew, kinks and coping mechanisms are yucky, how dare you act like a child to escape reality. We're having them because they're resulting in property damage and human indecency being paraded and praised. Like, notice how I had talked about the nut pizza because the group behind it left a biohazard in the public hallway for a few minutes, and how I didn't talk about the nut bong stunt they pulled at a later convention because, as degenerative as it was contained in their hotel room. Don't get me wrong, it isn't just diaper furs responsible for conventions getting this reputation to them. They've just been a more prominent group in more recent events. Other furries are just as responsible when it comes to convention misbehavior given the next section of this open letter. The furry community has always been a rather affectionate group of people. Between consenting adults, hugs, cuddles, kisses, or even a friendly squeeze of the butt are not uncommon. We respect this. However, we did have a few reports of people, shall we say, rounding third base sliding for home. I mean, in their defense, if you could find a more family-friendly way to say nearly fucked, be my guest. Please, if you want to put on a show, invite your friends back to your room, but we ask that you keep the PDA to appropriate levels for a hotel lobby or public spaces. I'll save you guys the over-sexualized fandom rant for now. But just know that incidents like these only make the furry convention scene as the whole look more abhorrent. As the more it continues, the higher chance that hotels and other locations no longer allow furry conventions to use their resorts as venues, leading to more monumental incidents like the one that killed Rainforest. As for the baby fur controversy going on, it's whatever really. I personally don't get the diapers and the sexualizing infantile stuff, but whatever helps you sleep at night, I guess. If you want to age regress to get away from this fucked reality we share, I'm not stopping you. I'd opt for escapism right now if I could too. I'll just keep to my side of the web as you do yours. As long as you're not forcing others to accept your interests or sexualizing yourself being young or anything that has to do with young stuff, I don't have much animosity towards you. We can coexist just fine. Just understand that things have a time and place, and we can all stay safe out there. Also, don't leave feces in hotel rooms. Other people got a bone there, you know. Fucking Christ.